Over the last couple of years, I've spent a lot of time listening to advice that's offered to men online. In the manosphere, there is a tendency to use evolutionary biology to justify men's sexual desires. The thought goes something like this. Human males have evolved to desire multiple sexual partners, and since this reproductive strategy has been successful, it must not be wrong. Well, this logic has even led some men to describe promiscuity in positive terms. Kevin Samuels said it this way: high-value men don't cheat, they exercise options. Myron Gaines makes a similar point when he says, a key that opens many locks is a master key, but a lock that opens to any key is a bad lock. Well, clearly there's a double standard implied from men and women here. But what I want to focus on is the underlying assumption that our desires should determine our behavior. Now, it does seem to be true that in general, men desire more sexual partners than women do. It is also true that many men would be unfaithful to their partners if they knew they could get away with it. But just because men want something doesn't mean that what they want is healthy or beneficial. So I want to briefly share two challenges to the idea that evolved preferences should be used to justify sexual behavior. First, the natural world cannot provide us with a suitable moral compass. You know, I spend a lot of time out in nature, and there is so much beauty to enjoy here. But the more time that I spend observing how things work in nature, the more dysfunction that I see. By human standards, animals treat each other quite poorly. Cowbirds commandeer the nests of other birds and even kill other baby birds to benefit their own young. Groups of male dolphins forcibly and violently have intercourse with female dolphins, sometimes for weeks on end. And in some species of monkeys, males who physically harm their mates have greater reproductive success. Now, I don't know anyone who thinks that humans should adopt the reproductive strategies of these animals. What works in nature is not a good guide for our sexual behavior. Well, the second reason why evolved preferences should not determine our behavior is that frequently our desires lead us down self-destructive paths. Addiction gives us a very clear picture of how our desires can consume us. And as a Christian, the Bible gives me a category for desires that do not lead to human flourishing. Scripture says that when the first people chose to disobey God, they unleashed a corruption in the world called sin. And because of sin, things are no longer the way that they were supposed to be. One of the effects of sin is that our desires are distorted. No longer do we always naturally want what is best for us. Sin inclines us towards selfishness, laziness, and the abuse of power. Christians teach that some of our natural inclinations should be restrained. My faith gives me a healthy skepticism about my own desires. While the manosphere might suggest otherwise, saying no to casual sex does not make men weak or inauthentic. Saying no to casual sex is good for men and women because our Creator didn't design us to live that way. We can only thrive as people when we live in the way that He has designed us to live. No matter what someone thinks about human origins, natural selection is not a good moral guide for us today. We can't depend on the natural world to tell us how men should act. We need divinely provided sexual ethics, not naturally derived sexual ethics. Well, I'm Enoch, and that's what I've been thinking about.